And welcome back to the Ghost and Friends YouTube channel. I got my guy NBA Horn Boy, aka Clint Barros, and Mr. Pack back in the building. Y'all doing all right, gentlemen?
Doing good.
Let's see. We've got comments are already running hot. Good start here. Heard Pack and Horn got hired today. They've been hired. They just haven't had the Twitter announcement. Y'all get the inside scoop. They just waiting their turn. I think I said yesterday that a school doesn't release all its silent commits at once, but here they are on campus again. And so, yeah, you know that. Here you go, Mike. He's right here to your top right. Appreciate you being here, guys. Thanks a lot. Pack Watch is indeed a thing. I'm going to talk a little bit about just Texas and 2025 offense. Kind of let Pack get into what he thinks will be our best bet from concept-wise, formation-wise. Get Clint's thoughts as well. And so let's start with that, Pack. As far as this offense, last year, inside zone, outside zone, primarily the two running concepts. Sark, he wants to run the football. He wants to have big tight ends on the field. Of course, tight ends that can get out and help in the passing game as well. But when you look at this offense and the personnel, what would you do, Pack? Of course, with a little bit of, Sark flavor in there, of course, because we got to pay homage to him. But what would you do? What do you think best fits Texas to be successful and definitely on the ground? We will talk about the air another time, but we're really focusing on the ground game in this episode.
Yeah, I think it starts with you want to be at a 50-50 balance of gap scheme versus zone scheme. So that's things like counter, duo, power, bash. All those different things are what we consider more gap scheme. And then zone, obviously, as you know, I just talked about inside zone, outside zone. And so this year to me, I think based on the offensive line we have, based on the running backs we have, I think you do want to stay a little bit more towards inside zone. I think it's a little bit easier to block. It's a bit easier for backs to see vision. And it's a little bit easier in terms of how you're going to play against certain fronts. And then from a gap scheme perspective, it's pretty much all of the above. You want to run some counter. You want to run some pin and pull. You want to run some duo. So for me, if the primary zone scheme and for what I would want to do is inside zone, and then you do a little bit of everything for a gap scheme.
Well said there. And I mean, talk about the 2024 Longhorns real quick, inside zone. Comparing that to this team here, do you think there will be a major improvement in inside zone blocking? Do you think, they'll be about the same? Talk about outside zone as well, but how you expect them to block counters and everything.
Yeah, I think it'll be better from a inside zone philosophy, just because I think it helps the backs a little bit more. With outside zone, you really do need to have really good vision, because the way outside zone blocking works is every lineman's going to block at a 45. To defensive coaches, it's what's known as horizontal displacement. So you're trying to displace someone horizontally and then give cutback lanes to backs. Whereas inside zone's a lot more vertical. It's a lot more north and south. So it's just a bit easier to block. You don't have to be as good of an athlete. It's more about strength and technique. So I think that's going to help a lot. And then guys like CJ Baxter, Trey Wisner in year 2, I think all of those are really helpful from just a productivity in the run game perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd imagine that running between the tackles certainly gets easier just with having a Cedric Baxter, hopefully a Christian Clark, Jarrett Gibson's bulked up some, able to deliver a little bit more block or pick up more yards than, when maybe what the play was blocked for. Clint, when you look at this offensive line, man, what are your initial impressions? I know, we've heard inexperience and it's not going to be the same. But these are guys who've been sitting and waiting their turn under a great offensive line coach. What do you think about the O-line?
I think obviously there's going to be a little bit of a step back from last year. I think just last year having I think it was 4 or 5 stars returning. I think that in itself gives last year's team a bit of an advantage, like in terms of them comparing to this year. But that's not to say that we don't have some amazing players on the O line. I mean, you have DJ Campbell returning, you have Trevor Gooseby, who, and the time that he has played, he showed really great promise. Um, then you have Cole Hudson. I'm guessing because of Kojo's injury now, Brandon Baker's gonna be starting, and I think the other guard's gonna be Umil Zulu. Um, I think we'll still be good. Obviously, a lot of talent, and those guys are at Texas for a reason. Um, and um, I think also with Arch, I know it's like this is a running game show, but I think just him being able to be more mobile in the pocket is going to help a lot with at least the pass blocking, and then also I think um, us being able to run a lot more inside zone, the run blocking efficiency is going to go up a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about DJ Campbell, you talk about Cole Hudson. These are guys that have played on and been a part of our offensive line in the past, whether it be due to injuries. Cole Hudson had a starting gig and lost it due to injuries, and that's part of the game. Pack from an experience standpoint, does what Texas is trotting out in 2025, and obviously the Kojo injury. Like, are you concerned about the O line? Concerned about the depth?
I think from a depth perspective, you're concerned, but not from a technique or how they're going to play standpoint. I think there's a lot of things that are going to help them out this year versus last year. I think the change from outside zone to inside zone being one. I think having Manning at quarterback helps a lot. So I think there's different things that, to me, mitigate some of the issues that you would have if you went straight from the same scheme last year with the same quarterback and everything and just switch the O lines. I think you'd have issues, but because I think things are going to change, I don't have as much worry there.
No, really well said. Going to address some of the comments in the chat here, the ones that we can put on screen. Yeah, Clint. Clint's going to win an arm wrestling contest most times there. I do appreciate the super chats, guys. I'm going to try to find them all. One of them I cannot put on screen. Mike Ross, whether you did this intentionally or not, thank you very much, brother. Appreciate you being here. Y'all throw a quick like on the video, guys, if you haven't subscribed yet. I do have to say, we did add over the last 3 days, added Miss Savannah 2J to cover the Atlantic Coast Conference, and Emily Taylor to cover the Big Ten, and NBA Horn Boy, myself, and those two ladies have agreed to recreate the singing scene from Step Brothers. Everyone, you all know what I'm talking about. If we can hit 1,500 subscribers by essentially kickoff of the opening weekend, so we've got 2 weeks. We need some help. I have a horrible singing voice. I promise you it'll be a riot. I'll give it my absolute 110% max. We're going to leave it all out on the field. But anyways, we're going to get back to the talk. Appreciate y'all being here. Yeah, Mike definitely, that was pretty great. That's going to go down for a long time. I think he called himself a dumbass immediately after he did it. But hey, Mike, YouTube's taking $1 of that, but we got $1, man. All right, as far as running backs go, do you expect Clint a different Quintravion Weisner compared to last year? I said he weighed a little bit heavier. Do you expect to see a more explosive back, maybe a guy that can get a little bit more in between the tackles, or what are your expectations there?
Oh yeah, I think for him, I think obviously just the experience from last year is going to give him a lot. He's going to improve a lot more just from that. I think that with the weight that he has gained, I think he'll definitely be able to be more of an inside zone back than last year. Not to say that he didn't have some great games last year when running the inside zone. I mean, the A&M game, he was phenomenal from whichever type of run we had him do, outside or inside. But I think he's gonna be a lot more. I think he's gonna be a lot more hard to bring down. I think his speed may drop off a little bit, as it does most times when you have players bulk up and get bigger. But I think overall he'll be good. I think with him, there's not really much that you're going to see that's going to surprise you. I think he's just a good serviceable back, and he can make plays when you need him to. But I wouldn't say there's going to be anything super like he's not going to have any super like big game changing ability. Still, in my opinion.
I mean, there's still a. I don't know what I did there, but I can't show all of these messages. I can show some of these messages. I can't put all of these on. There are some kids that watch this channel, but I do see them. I will say that. You can't. I can let you again. I can let you see some. I expect Quintravion to, not relinquish that role. I mean, he obviously was a starter for a college football playoff team and did a really good job there late in the season. But I do agree. I do think that there are certain limitations as far as explosiveness and game breaking. And that's not to say that he can't be a major contributor as he has been. He's good in the passing game, willing to do the dirty stuff to block. Um, but I do think that we have backs behind him. Obviously, in Cedric Baxter, you guys know how I feel about Christian Clark, and I think Jared Gibson looks really, really good. Now, again, this is orange on white. We'll see what it looks like against a real opposition there. But what's your stance on the running back room, Pack? How do you think it looks going into Ohio State Columbus week 1?
So I think week 1 you're going to end up with Baxter, Clark, and Gibson as your running backs. I wouldn't expect CJ Baxter to be playing in that game. I think that's a mid-September, late September type of return you're looking at. And then if we're talking about in terms of how the running back room is going to look into the season, I think as CJ Baxter gets healthier and as we go into November, December, I do think you'll see CJ Baxter start to get more of a 50-50 split with Trey Wisner. I feel pretty good about the depth of the room. I think obviously Contravion's had a good fall and a good spring, but you can say the same thing about Christian Clark. Obviously, Gibson's been working really hard over the summer, and then it's just making sure that the guys are ready. I think the biggest thing is pass pro. All these guys are going to be able to run the ball pretty well. All these guys know how to run the ball. They know what gaps to hit. They know how to read. They know how to read, get blocks. So it's mostly about, can you figure out how to play in pass pro? Can you make sure that you're identifying who your protection is? Do you know how to block and all those things? So that to me is my biggest question about the running back room, more so than any of the run game stuff.
Yeah, I mean, same here. I think it'll be productive. I just don't know, where the bulk of the carries is going exactly. Early on, I think it'll be, again, a pretty strong backfield, but definitely a platoon system used. I will shout you out, KB. I'm not going to answer your first super chat. Y'all are wilding, but yeah, these guys are great. I'll say that. Texas Clips, appreciate you being here, brother, man. Had a wild hot take today on the timeline. We're not going to bring that one up, but that was a wild one. As far as the offensive line goes, Pack, talk to me left or right. Who do give me strengths from Gooseby at left tackle to what it sounds like Brandon Baker's had a hell of a week of practice, finished last week strong. Kind of left to right, just the strengths overall of the offensive line.
Yeah, so I think if we're starting with Trevor Gooseby, I think it starts with he's really, really good in pass pro. He does a really good job of anchoring. You won't see him get his hips overextended. You won't see him, if this is your waist, you won't see him bend there, which when that happens, it's really easy to get snatched. So he does a really good job of not waist bending. He does a really good job of keeping his feet active, not letting himself get beat by oversetting or undersetting. So I think he does a really good job of that. He's really good in pass pro. And then with all young offensive tackles, I think you kind of just in the run game, it's all about learning how to time your hands, learning when to punch, learning how to keep your feet active, learning how to keep your hands inside the box. So that's something that you want to see improve. But I think a good summer does that for you. Same thing with Neto. He's had a good summer, obviously, good fall. It sounds like. So it's a little bit of an unknown there. I have high hopes. Cole Hudson at center. It sounds like he's done a good job. It sounds like he's doing a good job of picking up the playbook. Obviously, you don't expect the same thing in terms of an understanding of how the playbook of the playbook and knowing how to call out protections and knowing what way to slide, knowing what protections to be in. But I think you'll see some success from him. And then on the right side, you hope DJ Campbell has taken a big step. And then with Brandon Baker, it's just he's super technical in high school. That was the big thing coming out about him was he was really, really good at being technical. He had really good feet. He understood when to punch. He knew how to use an anchor, all of these different things. And so he just has to put that to practice and just show it in a game.
Well said, man, because that's the one thing you haven't seen yet from him is the in-game reps for him to, perfect that craft against, of course, big difference in practice reps, live in-game reps against elite, edge rushers that he's going to line up against all season. But Clint, it got posted. I do have to ask because at least this one's the comments PG, maybe not the topic, but to smuggle a green monster. I think the FBI might snatch him up first. But do you have a price for him, boy? Is your freedom worth $1 or $2?
I don't know how much is a WNBA ticket, like $15.
No comment, man. Depends on if Caitlin Clark's in the building or not, I guess. But is that your question, Megavol? Where's it at? No, I can't put your question on there. Stop.
I'm not reading chats till this is done. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, this is probably the worst chat we've had as far as good gosh, guys. All right, be nice. I don't want to boot anybody. It's not a threat, but I feel like I have to say it. But all right, so for me personally, I think you crushed the evaluation of the offensive line. It's still something that Texas fans and other people around, all the haters, they haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen it yet. I definitely lean with you. Like, I have a good feeling about this offensive line. I think they're being, not disrespected in a sense, but I just think they're being underappreciated even by some of our own fans. These are all guys who are going to be hungry in their own sense to go make a name for themselves and to get paid eventually. Well, get paid more. But so personnel wise, if you're lining up, you got Texas on College Football 26, which I know Kodak owns you in that. I'm just kidding. I think you beat Kodak, right? But what are you running? What are you doing here? Were you running 2 tight ends? You running 5 wide? You're gonna have to run the football a little bit to win games in the SEC.
Obviously, this is all going to be from a situational standpoint, like what down it is, where I am on the field. But I think my base will probably be like a 12 personnel. I like having the 2 tight ends. I think injuries, obviously, we've talked about this. I see him being a Mackey finalist. And then I think with what we've heard about Jordan Washington this past offseason, I think he can be a real asset to us, not only in the blocking game, but also the passing game. I can only imagine what you're reading.
It's just Kodak. Kodak said he wants his rematch.
I'm not giving him his rematch. I'm sorry. But yeah. But anyway, where was I? Okay. Injuries and Washington, I think the combination of them two will be great. I think it'd be an upgrade from Helm and Davis last year. And I think just having them both on the field gives you a lot more options play calling wise. And I think with Washington being a much better receiving tight end than Davis, I think that it can definitely open up a lot more in the passing game. But other than that, I think I also wouldn't mind a 21 personnel. Honestly, I kind of like having 2 backs. That's just me. So,
Sark loves to get creative, use motions out of the backfield. So you can take that 21 personnel and you can do a world of things with it. Same question for you, Pack. What do you think Texas will be the most successful in? What do you think Texas and Sark will lean on the most? Just kind of the direction this offense goes as far as sets and personnel wise.
Yeah, I think it starts with in 12 personnel. There's a lot of different things you can do when you're in 12. And probably the most important part is when you're in pro style, which means you're playing with more condensed splits, you're not spreading out the field all 53.5 yards. You're typically playing between the numbers, you're playing between the hashes. What can happen is most defenses, and I say this as a guy who's oriented around defense, they'll go into area calls and cover 3. They'll play a lot more 3 deep zone stuff. So what happens is it's a lot easier to play against cover 3 too. The rules are pretty set. It's not like if you're playing split field quarters where you can get 5 different concepts to the boundary into the field. So when you're in 12 personnel, it's just way easier to play offense. It's easier to run the ball. It's easier to get pass game concepts. You get better matchups. And probably the most important thing about 12 personnel is how it can force defenses into base. So playing in a 3-4, a 4-3, instead of playing in nickel, a 4-2-5, or playing in a dime. And so you get better matchups even on the perimeter. You can get a good matchup with Jack Endries or Jordan Washington, or if you do some fun stuff with alignment, you can get a good matchup with Emmett Mosley or Ryan Wingo, any one of these guys. So 12 personnel to me is, if you can run it well, that would be my approach. And then I think after that, it's a tunnel of 11 personnel, and then throwing in some 21. I tend to avoid 10 just because it forces you to play spread. And that's kind of something that I don't think you want to do just if you want to be run heavy. You almost have to do what Tennessee does or what air raid principal teams do, where you're playing 53.5 and just playing a numbers game.
I like it, man. I mean, I think you two were thinking similarly on that. Sark, Alabama had plenty of, success out of the 12 personnel, and he just loved to, just kind of beat teams down with it, especially in the second half there. He really leaned on the running game. And, I would love for that to be our case. That just go out, pound people, maul people in 12 personnel. You're able to run your play action sets when safeties get down or a little over aggressive. And like you said, you can run any type of concept that you want there. We do have two very capable tight ends, in my opinion. Y'all know how I feel about injuries. I think Jordan's going to be really good as well. He might break out later in the year than earlier because, again, I think injuries is going to be a big part of the offense from the jump. I got you, Mega Will. Where do I think Tennessee's defense falls in the SEC? I'm going to tell you what. I think Tennessee in general is a little bit better than some others do. I'm going to get these gentlemen's opinion as well. But I think just losing Nico, or I don't want to even call it a loss, but shedding that situation probably really healthy for the program. And I can imagine that there's a sense of a come together moment after he goes, just rallying back together, because that felt like he was not really a part of that program there towards the end. But no, I like what the Vols have on defense. I think they're going to be pretty good, and Josh Heupel can always manufacture some offense. And now to me the offense is better, and I don't think the defense drops off too much at all. Pack, you go first on that. What do you think about the Vols?
Defensively, I like them a lot. I think Tim Banks does some good stuff. He's kind of like every other SEC coordinator in the sense of they're going to play a ton of quarters. They're going to play a ton of cover three. They're going to mix middle field closed and middle field open. You'll see a decent amount of man in there. They'll play with mint fronts. They'll play with even. They'll do pretty much everything that you expect of like a good SEC defense. They've got a really good secondary this year, so I think they'll be good defensively. And then offensively, I think part of what makes Tennessee really good every year is it's a simple offense, but it's also a really good offense in the sense of you're going to be able to run the ball in 10 of 12 games just because you're playing so spread. Teams are most of the time having to match that with their personnel. So you're always able to run the ball in that system. So I think they'll be good. I think they'll be able to keep Aguilar. I think they'll be able to keep him clean and make him kind of make good decisions. And I think they'll be pretty good. We'll just have to see what it looks like against teams like Georgia or teams like Florida or Alabama, who have guys who can play a 3-3-5 or can play a bunch of different things to mitigate some of the stuff that Tennessee does really well.
Really, really well said. The chat's impressed with you, Pac, man. It said
I can draw it up right now. I can just show you.
Let's see it. We want to see it, man. Let's see the Josh Heupel. Is that what you're talking about? Are you talking about a match to the Josh Heupel look? Okay, let's see it.
Yeah, so what happens is I'm just going to draw 5 linemen. And so what happens most of the time with Tennessee is you'll see them play like with really wide splits. Right. So we'll just put the X here. We'll put a slot here. We'll put an H here. And then we'll just put a tight end right here. And so what happens is, let's just say this is the box right here, right? This is your box. So a lot of the times teams will just play a straight 4 down. I'll just draw an under front. And so what you'll see happen is now with your backers, because you have a spread and you have 2 open to both sides, what's going to happen is a lot of the times teams will lock their corners here. And then what they have to do is with their nickel, if this is the strong side, their nickel is now apexed out. But then you now need someone to match with the Y. So they drop one of their backers, and then they have both of their safeties back. And so what ends up happening is you end up with a 5-man box against a 7-man run concept, right?
Right.
What you end up happening is you can do it's just a good box for Tennessee. And what makes teams like Georgia or Alabama really good is the fact that they're able to stop the run with light boxes and play different concepts, if that makes sense.
It makes a ton of sense, man. I mean, and that right there, you see why Josh Heupel's just his offense has a natural built-in advantage just from alignment. Not even adding any concepts to it. The ball hasn't been snapped or anything yet. We're not even talking personnel, but just from what Pac mentioned, running a ball against a very, very light box. And you play the numbers game. You take the yards, and eventually, teams get out of that, and they do a pretty good job in the screen game as well. There was a question up here, Clint. I'm going to get you your answer first. Top 5 teams in the SEC. Care to answer that one for us?
So top 5 teams in the SEC. Actually, let me pull up real quick because I did a whole thing on this earlier. Okay, so I'm just gonna do this in no order because I think
Pull it up.
I think it could go any way. But I have Texas being one of them. I have Georgia, Alabama, LSU, and then one that might surprise people, and I'm gonna get hate from my Horns fans, but A&M.
I mean, I think that's fair. I really do. I know that that offense has a lot of potential. That offensive line returns more experience, obviously, than anyone else in the conference. Chat, who's y'all's top 5? Pat, care to give us a top 5? Appreciate the super chats. I don't care what the captions are saying. Y'all are helping. Thank you. But we'll get to all the questions that y'all have asked them in a minute. But go ahead, Pat. Sorry about
in no order: Texas, Georgia, Bama, LSU, South Carolina.
I like it. You trust South Carolina on the defensive side of the ball. Not too much of a fall off. They did lose a couple in that front
Yeah,
seven.
I'm super high on Lenore Sellers. I think that's one of those guys who, to me, can win games by himself. I think they're going to be pretty solid defensively. Obviously, they have, for me, the best edge rusher in the country in Dylan Stewart. So that's one of those things where, to me, when you have 2 really, really good players, you can win a lot of games. And there's an argument that they have the best quarterback and the best edge rusher in the league, and that can do a lot of things for you.
I believe Ian Boy, calls those, or maybe not quarterbacks in there. Does he have quarterbacks in the Space Force positions?
I don't know.
I mean, it would make sense. It would have to be, right? But anyways, yeah, no, I'm with you. Will South Carolina be in the top 5 in the standings? That is not something that I'm so sure of now. Schedule's tough. Maybe there's, that LSU South Carolina game in Death Valley. That's going to be, I think, one of the better games in the entire conference slate. Like, I can't wait for that game. I am also a big believer in Lenore, so I think he could very well be in New York towards the end of the season. I mean, when you talk about that first quarter and a half he had against LSU last year in Columbia, I think South Carolina runs away with that game if he doesn't go down with injury. Then obviously he finishes the year with a bang. For myself, Texas, Georgia, Bama. I just think Alabama's front 7 is too dang good. I love Alabama's roster top to bottom if they can just find competent quarterback play. And then I'm going to throw in a bit of a surprise here. And I'm going by the standings. Okay, this is my top 5. Well, I guess I didn't do 4. 4, I'm going to go with LSU. 5, I'm going to go with a team that's going to lose in Waco in week 1, the Auburn Tigers. Going to drop that game to Baylor. They're going to rally. I like a couple of the pieces on defense, but obviously there's below the wide receiver core. I mean, that's a pretty, for Auburn, that's maybe as good as I've ever seen that wide receiver in the room. Jackson Arnold, I think, is a big time step up from Peyton Thorne. I think he just was stuck in a pretty nasty situation last year. Not saying he's completely innocent, but so yeah, curious. Let me get down the chat, see who y'all had in the top 5 here. See if there's any Texas hate. I know there's going to be Texas hate. Sorry, I had to scroll down. Cutest SEC quarterback. I know Hornboy wanted this question in there, right? I think he wanted in. Joe Burrow left the league, so I don't even know why we're even talking about it anymore. But it's all right. It's all right, Clint. You could admit a man's attractive, and Joe Burrow is what he is. Mookie for Heisman would be cool. Keelan, I think, is too young. What do y'all think about Keelan? Do y'all think Keelan Russell has a chance to eventually become the starter at Alabama in year 1?
Not year 1, unless it goes really poorly. As long as they're decent, I think they stick with Simpson.
Yeah.
Agreed. What do you
Me and
think,
Packer
Clint?
talked about this, but I think I think what you saw from Ty Simpson in the game he played versus USF isn't really what Ty Simpson is. I think with Kalen DeBoer's system, he's going to fit that a lot better than Jalen Milroe did, just with his passing ability and the way DeBoer runs his offense. It's not really one that's designed for uh, a run first quarterback in a sense. But I think that Ty Simpson will have a good year. I'm probably not as high on him as Pack is, but um, I think he'll be decent enough to where they're not really going to have to make a quarterback change unless an injury happens or, like you said, something really bad goes wrong.
I mean, the A&M hype. I get it. That offensive line, they honestly 7 deep with experience. Pack, you a believer that Marcel takes that next jump? There are a lot of people out there. I saw Josh Pate today talking about how he would have A&M 21 spots, 10 spots higher than 21 in the coaching poll.
I've always been of the opinion the junior year is what it is for Marcel Reed. Just going off of what last year was, I don't know that you make that big of a jump as a processor and as a touch passer and as an anticipator. Last year, I remember I wrote before that Texas game, I thought he had a really hard time getting to a second read and getting to a third read. A lot of the times you'd see him scramble and leave clean pockets. I thought you saw a lot of when he was throwing over the middle, you saw it late and you saw it behind. And those are signs of someone who's not seeing the field super well. So for me, I think they're going to be better this year. I think he's going to play better. But I think the junior year is more so when I expect him to really take that step and be what a lot of people think he is. I don't think I'm there with him this year.
Well, do you think that they have enough remedies in the secondary to kind of exceed their own fans? I won't say exceed their own fans, but exceed our 8-4 expectations.
I think so. It's not a terrible schedule. There's like 5 really difficult games, and if you go 2-3 in those, you go 9-3, and that's a good season. I think for me, I have less questions about the secondary and more so what does Elko do with the front and how does he change going into next year versus what he did last year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. It looked like Turner and Nick Scorton. It looks like they showed up a little bit heavy, and it just didn't look like they moved quite the same that they did. It's obviously Scorton at Purdue, and then earlier in his Aggie career for Turner. Do I think Sarkis Hampson? Absolutely, man. That's a great looking guy. So UTSA owns us in baseball. Yeah, I'm gonna have to. For now, I'm gonna have to say, yeah. Don't let Nash see that. But softball national championship. I don't know what you're talking about, Peyton, but we'll celebrate that around these parts. All right. My top 5 coaches in the SEC while we're here. Same question for you two gentlemen in just a moment. No particular order. DeBoer, Smart, Sark. I'm gonna give him. It's gonna get over the hump. I think it's a pretty tough crack. It's tough to. I should say Brian Kelly just because of what he's done in the past, but I'm treating this as who I would want to coach my program in the future. And so I'm going to go with Shane Beamer, and I'm going to go with a Michael Elko. What about you, gentlemen?
Kirby. You can go. Okay. Kirby, Sark, Kiffin, Heupel, Kelly. Not in order, though the first 2 are.
All right. I'm gonna go. This is no order either. Sark, Kirby Smart. I think that one just speaks for itself. Um, I like Kiffin just because of what he's done with. I like Kiffin just because of what he's done with the program. How he brought Ole Miss back from the disaster that they were in. I think it was who was it? Matt Luke that was the last coach. I think so. Yeah.
Think so?
Other 2, probably Kalen DeVore. I think the way he's able to develop offenses is really good, and Huh?
Go ahead. I was gonna say I agree. I was gonna say I agree with
Oh,
you. Go ahead. Sorry.
damn, I really did not want to say Brian Kelly. Um,
I'm treating it as people that I would want to coach my team, but obviously, if you're looking at accolades, Kelly would be considered a top five coach in the
I'll just go
conference.
Heupel.
So.
I'm not I'm not
See, now
putting Kelly
here's
in my
my
top
thing.
five.
Here's my thing. Megavol Will is mad at me for not putting in Heupel, but here's the thing he's not thinking of. Okay, Josh Heupel is a Sooner, and he also beat us 63-14 the last time he lined up against us. All right, Megavol Will. So yeah, I've got a 25-year-old beef with your head football coach, but I think he's fantastic on offense. And obviously, if he ever, for some reason, ended up in the better shade of orange, I wouldn't even be that mad. Really wouldn't be. But all right, chat. We got time for y'all to ask us one more question if y'all want one. These are fun. Josh is a great coach. I'm not arguing, and I think that he's fringe top 5 at worst. I'll give you that. I think it's really, I mad respect for the fact that he committed to defense because obviously he's an offensive mind, and he committed to the defense and pass rush. He got that front 7 right. So I've got respect for Heupel. I really do. But give us a question. In the meantime, gentlemen, anything else that y'all would like to bring up and or cover? We kind of got a little deterred from Texas football, but we had to kind of please the guests. We got a crowd from everywhere in here.
I'm just looking forward
Last
to.
question. All right, what
Yeah,
else got one?
this isn't what we're talking
Go ahead.
about today, but I think one of the things that I'm most looking forward to week 1 is just to see what Ohio State does from a defensive perspective. Is whether it's fronts coverage because it's completely new coordinating system. So Knowles obviously ran the 3 high. It was Tampa, started from evens and ran a lot of reductions. So does does their new DC Patricia, does he do the same thing? Does he play with the same 3 high sort of stuff, or does he try to play a little bit more quarters, a little bit more man coverage, and lean more into what Belichick does? That's the thing that I'm most interested in about that game.
If you were Patricia, how would you, or what would you rather? What's your tip your hand here? What would you do against the Steve Sarkisian offense, knowing that they have Arch Manning, a guy that's going to be obviously, you know, the whole field is open, and you're playing 11 on 11. So how would you line up
I
against
think
this
you
Texas
grab
team?
what a lot of Georgia does, a lot of what like the Saban system does. So you play man match quarters on the outside, and then you throw in some zone match quarters. You can play some cover 3 in there. You do a bunch of different stuff with the fronts. You're consistently changing up middle field closed, middle field open. I think you just have to keep making him reprocess the field. You can't give him one picture. I think him and Sark are just too good at what they do to let that happen. So I think if it were me, I'm playing a ton of cover 3. I'm playing a ton of quarters, and then with my front, I'm doing a bunch of different stuff. I think if you go back and watch that first Georgia game, you'll see they ran a ton of different pressure paths, a bunch of different blitzes, a bunch of different simulated. So I think causing confusion in protections. And then in the back end, that's what I would do if I was facing Texas. I think when you do that, you kind of take the ball out of Sark's hands and you just make it about how well can Arch see the field today? How well can he make good decisions? And those are things that I think that's like the best you can do as a coach.
No, absolutely well said, man. You want to muddy up that picture the best that you can. You're not going to get a lot of the same repetitive looks. I mean, we talked about a little with Inside Texas. Shout out to they do such a fantastic job, in my opinion, covering Texas football. But they talked a little bit about how Texas, doubled Jeremiah Smith, and it sounds just so simple when you hear it. Okay, Texas was double teaming Jeremiah Smith on occasion in the Cotton Bowl. Well, then you look at it and it's just not that simplistic. Doubles are coming from all over the place. You would think it was an NBA game and Shaq was in his prime, and so you just that's what you do against a really good offensive mind like Steve Sarkisian, who obviously has had ample time to prepare. Obviously, he's going to study a ton of Matt Patricia and from all of his stops, I'm sure. And it's going to be a really fun chess match to see how that plays out. And like yourself, it'll be fun just to see how they, go and defend one another on both sides there. Pat, or sorry, let's go Hornboy. You first here. Which program is best positioned? I'll let you think for a minute, but which program is best positioned to dominate the next 5 years? And is it because of recruiting or coaching stability? Not Texas, not Georgia, not Alabama. Fair question. Um, I'll give you two that I like a lot, and one would be I like Tennessee. I really do. I like the commitment to defense. Heupel knows the stuff on offense. He will find his quarterback that works out. And, we've seen him before with quarterbacks that, he's had an assistant for a couple of years and that really, really got going and made that offense kind of fly and kind of hit its ceiling. Outside of that, I'm not a believer in Brian Kelly, so I'm not going to sit here and say LSU, but I naturally I just want to because it should be so easy for them to win with all the elite athletes you have right there in your own backyard, especially, on the defensive side of the ball that you can just pluck and shut people down with, running sideline to sideline. I just can't. So I'm going to go to my guy, Shane Beamer, because he has a young Lenore Sellers. He does have a Dylan Stewart is young, and he's got a lot of hype, man. He really does. People love that guy. It's a ton of energy. But I'm going to tell you right now, when Oklahoma fires Brent Venables this year, I'm going to be a little nervous that they look at the old Sooner and Mr. Shane Beamer. I hope they don't do it. But what about you guys? Same question. Which program best positioned to dominate? Can't name we'll call them the big three. I don't think that's fair to say, but we'll call them that.
I gotta agree with you with the Tennessee one. I think just the mix of the coaching that they have, the resources they have, the recruiting base that they have, um, and I think just what we've seen consistently from Josh Hype, from from Josh Heupel. I think that they're going to be a yearly contender in the SEC. Um, that's not to say that like they're gonna just like completely dominate or like win the championship at all, SEC or national championship. But I think that they're a team that's going to be consistently at the upper echelon of the SEC. And I mean, I feel like the obvious answer is just LSU. I get the whole Brian Kelly thing, and I'm not a Brian Kelly fan myself. But I think just the what really helps them a lot with that is going to be the recruiting that they have and the recruiting base. Um, they're located in one of the best pools of like athletes that they can have. They're right next to Texas. They're not too far from Georgia or Florida, and it's not like they're having to really contend with a lot of bigger schools for like certain guys. Because Louisiana is also a really good hotspot for recruits too. Now, like if you're in a position like Arkansas, where like you're having to compete with, because you don't have many great players in Arkansas, you're competing with Texas and Oklahoma and A&M for guys in Texas. I mean, your options are very limited. So I think LSU just based off that, and they haven't been bad. We've seen them have the ability to be an elite program. So it's gonna be LSU and Tennessee for me.
I mean, it should be. It should definitely LSU should be in that conversation as long as I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're not going to do it because they're loaded top to bottom. It's just I think that Blake Baker's defense is better in year two. Same question for you, Pack. I think you have maybe a little bit more belief in LSU than I do. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, LSU, Tennessee, and A&M for me. A&M's been recruiting really well. I think they keep doing that under Elko. LSU, again, a recruiting hotbed. They'll always get the best in that state, or they should. And then Tennessee, I think they've done a really good job recruiting recently. And I think the way they play, the way Heupel has them, they'll always win 9+ games. And then what they do after that 9th win is kind of to be determined. But those would be my three.
All in agreement there on Tennessee. I mean, respect for Heupel and what he does, man. I mean, they're winning 9 games every year. That's French playoff team, and of course, obviously, the opportunity to do more. But I can't wait to go to Neyland Stadium. Neyland Stadium. That's my most desired SEC venue, I think. But yeah, well, all right, guys. Really appreciate y'all being here and supporting the
Joshy,
guys.
one sec. I want to answer this.
Good.
I don't think Nick Brooks ends up with a starting job this year. I think you'll see him start next year when Trevor Gooseby enters the draft. But I don't think that'll happen this year.
Thanks for bringing that up. I saw that comment, meant to scroll back up to it. There you go, Joshy. Big fan of Nick Brooks. I think he's going to end up being a really dang good player for this program. But hopefully, you know, we get to wait and see him next year. But depth, injuries, you know, those are going to be a concern all year long because we know that you know, one goes hand in hand with the other really quickly. And so just rooting for positive news for the rest of, I'm not calling it camp anymore. Dave got onto me, so I'm calling it practice for the rest of practice. Hoping for positive news, honestly, for everybody, man. I hate seeing injuries. I feel like I haven't seen a crazy amount this year. I feel like the last couple of summers, last couple of Augusts have been brutal. You know, us, A&M, Oklahoma, you know, we've all had our fair share of wounds. But definitely rooting for all these kids to be able to get out there and put their best on for everyone. Like the video, guys, if you haven't done so yet. Thanks for being here, Pack and Hornboy, checking in and checking out, doing a great job with the channel, and they will be back. I am going to say tomorrow night, I'm going to have 8:30 show. I'm not going to say the topic yet because I don't know, but we're going to be back 8:30 tomorrow night. So y'all tune in, and yeah, we'll have some more fun. So thanks for being here. Really, a lot of you guys first timers. The super chats are really cool, even with the captions. So couldn't repeat. It does mean a lot. Thanks for helping the channel, and y'all have